What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Ariel Helwani reacts to Dana White media comments. Dana White recently dropped some pretty big news, revealing that he sees a day in the future where the media section at events is gone, and in its place is a bunch of influencers and content creators. Considering that Dana's been a pretty big advocate for free speech, a listener asked Ariel Helwani on Wednesday's episode of the Ariel Helwani Show whether he found it ironic that Dana preaches free speech but suppresses media members and outlets who criticize him. And before we continue, make sure to leave a like on the video to help support the channel. In response, Helwani said that he was actually surprised the UFC hadn't done away with media members already.
I'm actually shocked that that hasn't happened yet. The UFC, even compared to boxing, gives the media really good seats. If the UFC announced today that the media is going to go up into the rafters and those 3-4 rows are going to be populated by ticket buyers or influencers, whatever, nothing's going to happen. And by the way, they could do that. This is inevitable. And I was not surprised. I'm actually surprised that it's taken this long for it to come out. And I think, like I said, I think it's going to happen in no time.
Considering the UFC is its own entity, if they want to get rid of media credentials and only have influencers covering events, it doesn't sound like anything can stop them. Daniel Cormier and Chael Sonnen confused on Sean Strickland hate. Chael Sonnen and Daniel Cormier are currently preparing for the upcoming season of The Ultimate Fighter, where they'll coach against one another. According to MMA Orbit, WWE superstar Jacob Kasper, aka Julius Creed, is part of DC's coaching team after working with DC during training camp for his UFC 214 rematch with John Jones. Considering the two coaches are retired this season, they won't fight at the end of The Ultimate Fighter. Instead, the two coaches pitched an idea during Media Day yesterday. They want Michael Chiesa, who is on Daniel Cormier's coaching staff, to fight Colby Covington, who is on Chael Sonnen's coaching staff.
Why don't they just fight and then Chael and I coach him? That's about as close as we would both get to going back into the octagon. So why don't those dudes just fight each other?
And to back Daniel up, I can't believe nobody's suggesting that. That's the obvious fit. Like, I don't think that Colby and Chiesa are going to get through this process without finding one another.
But imagine how much we can instigate them.
Yeah.
It would be awesome. Like, we could instigate those guys for 4 weeks.
No word yet on whether the UFC is interested in booking this fight. Also, Chael has pushed for a Colby Covington versus Gilbert Burns fight recently after Burns leaked Sonnen's number, so it looks like Covington has some options moving forward. On the topic of Colby Covington, he's already thinking about a move into the WWE within a year or two, so it doesn't look like he's interested in the UFC for much longer.
When is it time to go to the WWE? I would say probably like 2 years. I want to start really working on my in-ring wrestling and, my crowd-pleasing ability in the next year or two. And, maybe I'll go up to Orlando and go to the WWE training center, but I want to really start perfecting my craft in the WWE and the wrestling moves, and hopefully I can make a transition in the next year or two.
DC and Chael also weighed in on what they thought of DDP versus Strickland. Many UFC fighters and media members have come out to criticize Strickland for his performance and game plan. The way Chael Sonnen and Daniel Cormier sees things though, DDP was simply the better fighter, and the fact that Strickland chose to keep fighting despite having his nose broken should absolve him of any criticism when it comes to his performance in the fight. During a press conference filmed by MMA Junkie, Sonnen and Cormier spoke about Strickland's performance and the hate he's received.
People are kind of piling on this guy right now.
Yeah, why? Did he do bad? I was proud of his effort.
It's kind of crazy how much people are piling on when, sure, he lost. Sometimes you get beat. You know what's crazy? That I get it, that he can be like, I'm this, and I'm going to do this, I'm this. Dude, sometimes it just doesn't work.
Having your nose broke, it hurts really bad. Like, breaking a finger and breaking your nose, two small things, but I will just tell you, like, the pain is really immense, and to watch Sean reset it and stay in that fight, the math was already against him when his nose broke. He was not going to win that fight. He did not have the power. He wasn't going to find the guy. The math was against him, so he can stay out there for another 12 minutes taking an whipping because it was honorable, or he could quit. He chose to stay in there and take a whipping.
Yeah, he did.
Strickland broke his silence on the situation in a video posted on social media where he spoke on the loss and Eric Nixick's criticism.
You guys keep tagging me about this whole Eric thing. I like Eric. He's a friend of mine, and he's going to continue to be a friend of mine. Will he probably be in my corner? Probably not. We have so many great guys at Extreme. But, man, that entire fight camp was just a struggle. Like, it was a struggle. And, guys, we all have excuses as to why we didn't win or why we won and we shouldn't have won. We all have excuses, and they don't matter. The only reason why I'm making this video is because Eric had to go do a podcasts and become an influencer. So now I got to like, all right, kind of explain myself. This is not an excuse, but that entire camp was just a struggle of I'm good. Knowing you're not good. I was in Colombia like 7 weeks out, and getting stem cells on a broken bone. Again, bone healed fine, no excuse, but all camp, this is just in the back of your head, and like you just keep telling yourself I'm good. But all camp, dude, whether it be, the staph infection, the broken arm, having to get a visa that didn't get approved until a week, not being able to get cornerman out there. This entire camp was like a struggle of I'm not good, but me looking in the mirror and saying sack up. Nothing away from Dricus. He came here, fought his up, broke my nose, like hats off. Did you fall like man? I don't fight because, Eric wants to go do a fancy podcast. That's not why I fight. It's through the UFC and fight fans, like, you guys have changed my life. You've made me grow so much as a person in the ring and out of the ring, and that's why I fight. I'm going back to the gym, I'm working my off, and I'm starting from square one. And you have a choice. You either sack up and you do it, or you quit. And I'm going to sack up and do it. And I broke my nose like 3 times in that round. And every single time, I didn't quit. I didn't go sit on the stool and say, hey, my nose is broken, I can't fight. I adjusted every time. Back in the gym, sack up, and on to the next.
Dricus du Plessis beats both Alex Pereira and Khamzat Chimaev. Over the past year, there's been tons of talk surrounding a potential fight between Dricus du Plessis and Alex Pereira. While Poatan said he'd be willing to make the cut back down to 185, DDP and his coach have both shown an openness to moving up to 205 for the fight. Although Pereira's next fight is just weeks away, and DDP's likely going to wind up defending the title against Khamzat Chimaev later this year, Henry Cejudo thinks that if Poatan and DDP collide inside the octagon, DDP's ability to mix things up will be a major X factor. He spoke on the latest episode of the Pound for Pound podcast, saying, even though I do believe that Pereira is going to beat Magomed Ankalaev, I'll definitely put my money with DDP. I think DDP stylistically is a problem, and I know DDP is going to go in there and wrestle, and I think with the grappling, I think that could be very problematic. But there's one thing that I will say is he will need to be careful because Alex Pereira does a really good job of countering, and there's a lot of little sloppy things that DDP does, but I think I put my strengths and his mixing of the fighting against a guy like Alex Pereira. I personally think he beats up Khamzat Chimaev. Considering Pereira's more focused on defending his title than moving up to heavyweight, it'll be interesting to see if the UFC lets DDP move up if he keeps racking up title defenses like Cejudo's expecting. Michael Chandler calls out Paddy Pimblett for UFC 317. After teasing a potential fight earlier in the week by joking that fighting Paddy Pimblett would be a scary fight, Michael Chandler is now calling out Paddy Pimblett for a big fight this summer on the International Fight Week pay-per-view. In a post on social media on Wednesday, Chandler called out Pimblett for an International Fight Week showdown, simply writing, Chandler versus Paddy, UFC 317, International Fight Week. While the baddie has said that he's targeting a bout on the UFC 314 pay-per-view in Miami, if the UFC does not wind up finalizing a fight, Pimblett will likely jump at a chance to fight the number 7 ranked lightweight. From the sounds of things, whether or not a fight between Pimblett and Chandler winds up happening, there's no chance of a fight between the baddie and Dustin Poirier. In response to Pimblett and Nate Diaz chirping him on social media earlier in the week, the Diamond fired back. You guys will try to attach your name to anything for clout and clicks, but guess what? It's legends only. With Pimblett off his radar, there's no telling who Poirier's retirement fight will be against. Dana White reveals huge deal for UFC. The UFC might wind up changing broadcast partners at the end of this year, but Monster Energy is here to stay as the official energy drink of the UFC. On Wednesday, Dana White and TKO announced a new multi-year deal that will keep Monster as the official energy drink of the UFC. In response, Monster Energy co-CEO Rodney Sachs was quoted by the UFC site as saying, for nearly a decade, Monster Energy and the UFC have built one of the most impactful partnerships in sports. This historic renewal marks the biggest sponsorship deal in our history and the largest in UFC history. UFC is the most dynamic combat sports organization in the world, and its athletes embody the aggressive personality, the uncompromising passion, and the relentless drive to succeed that is Monster's DNA. Together, we're excited to keep raising the bar and fueling the next generation of UFC champions and fans. On the UFC side, in response to the news, Dana White posted a video on social media thanking Monster for their continued support, while expressing his excitement for this new chapter in their partnership.
What's up, everybody? I just want to let you know that Monster and the UFC have just signed a massive long-term deal. Monster will continue to be the official energy drink of the UFC. This is the biggest sponsorship deal for both Monster and UFC. They're very passionate about the sport. They love the brand. We love Monster. They supported UFC for a very long time, and we are excited to continue this awesome partnership for many years to come.
UFC Updates. Heading into this weekend's card at the Apex, the UFC updates just keep on rolling. First up, we have a new addition to the UFC Mexico card at the end of March, with Manuel Torres set to fight Drew Dober. Torres is fresh off a loss to Ignacio Bahamondes late last year. On the flip side, Dober's in the middle of a 2-fight skid that's seen him lose 3 of his last 4. Then, the following weekend, Josh Emmett and Lerone Murphy are set to throw down at the Apex, with Emmett looking to return to action after 1 year off following his knockout win over Bryson Mitchell. Meanwhile, Murphy is going to be looking to extend his undefeated record after back-to-back victories over Edson Barboza and Dan Ige last year. The first fight on the UFC 315 card set for Montreal has also been announced, with 2-time TUF winner Brad Katona set to throw down against Khamzat Almakhan in a fight that will see Katona look to bounce back after a loss to Gene Matsumoto in October, and Almakhan looking to bounce back after a loss to Umar Nurmagomedov back in May. We also have some pretty big news on Max Holloway, who revealed during an online interaction with a fan that he and the UFC are working on the date for his next fight, which is expected to take place at lightweight. And last but not least, the UFC's released the UFC 313 poster for the upcoming Pereira Ankalaev card set for the beginning of March. What do you guys think of the posters? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. MMA community reacts to Renato Moicano comments. Leading up to his fight on the UFC 311 card, Renato Moicano called on the UFC to update their bonus structure, explaining that bonuses should be adjusted for inflation. Now, Moicano's back with a revolutionary idea, saying that the UFC should give fighters shares of the company based on their performances. The TKO stock has been up 102% in the past year and 318% in the past 5 years. Of course, a lot of key things happened to make the stock move up the way it has, like the UFC and WWE merger, Netflix and WWE deal, the success of both the UFC and WWE in the past year, and the list goes on. With the UFC's TV rights deal around the corner, this could be another catalyst for the stock to go up. Renato Moicano is seeing the numbers and thinks it's a smart idea to give fighters TKO shares depending on their performances. Moicano took to X and wrote, "If the UFC gave TKO shares to fighters based on the performance, it would benefit everyone. Fighters earn long-term financial security, and the promotion strengthens loyalty and investment from its biggest stars. Reward success, build the future." Moicano then followed it up, explaining, "Fighters are independent contractors. It would require contract adjustments and SEC compliance, but still possible." The MMA community was quick to react to the suggestion, and although not everyone was sold on fighters getting a revenue share, the general consensus is that something needs to change. UFC went from $100 million revenue to over $1 billion revenue, and the fighter bonus pool didn't go up a cent. Another replied, "Hard truths, money. The UFC doesn't care about your long-term security, only its own. The UFC doesn't want or need your loyalty. The brand is the star, not you." One member of the MMA community broke down the idea. "This isn't a crazy idea. There's something called phantom units. These are claims on a company's profits but are non-dilutive. They don't translate to actually permanent equity. When the contractor employee leaves, the units cease to exist." Another added, "The throwaway method that DW likes to use maximizes ownership money and minimizes money invested into the fighters. As long as people keep buying $80 pay-per-views and the UFC gets all the major media deals, ESPN, he's never changing how he does business." As one member of the community wrote, "They don't want you to have long-term financial security. Dana has told y'all many times that they do not want you to be financially secure because that means you would fight less. They want you all to beggars and you all are too willing to oblige them." Longtime reporter Trent Rainsmith added, "That loyalty goes one way. Financial insecurity is a feature. The UFC and TKO won't even give fighters health insurance. The stars are the 3 letters, UFC and Dana White. Fighters are replaceable cogs, thrown away when they're broken or become too expensive to maintain." As one member of the MMA community theorized, the UFC makes $1 billion a year, but the company president complained that raising one-time greater than $1 million bonuses did not improve performance and said never again. "The problem isn't money, and it isn't that y'all not be exciting. They just do not want to pay you more. That's it." Despite fans wanting fighters to make more, it sounds like change is not on the horizon. Paddy Pimblett goes off on Ilia Topuria and calls him out to a fight at lightweight during an interview with Elder Burdan MMA on YouTube. Here's what Paddy had to say.
Okay, Ilia's a people don't understand how much bigger I am than Ilia. I'm so much bigger than him. People don't realise. I'd love to do a stare down with him, just so everyone could see how much bigger I actually am than him. Don't get me wrong, he's very good. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna, just because I don't like him, doesn't mean I'm gonna sit here and lie. He's a very good fighter, but I also think he got fast-tracked to the belt because Volk had cleared the featherweight division out already. He'd only beat Bryce Mitchell and Josh Emmett and got a title shot. He's talking about coming up to lightweight when he's only had one title defense. Like, I think you need to defend the belt at least 3 times if you want to fight for the belt in the division above. If he wants to come to lightweight, I'm here waiting. You know what I mean? I'll be there to welcome him. I don't think anyone else in the division has got more of a claim to welcome him to the division than I have. He tried to steal it on me. I'd love to have a fair fight with him and kick him all over the gaff.
On the topic of Ilia Topuria at lightweight, Islam Makhachev revealed he's willing to fight Topuria during an interview with Match TV. He does have one stipulation before accepting the scrap. Islam said, "I'm not going to give him a shot right away because he hasn't done all the work he was supposed to in his weight class. There are still contenders he needs to beat, but he doesn't want to cut weight anymore. Let him move up and earn his shot, and we'll definitely fight." Do you agree with Islam, or do you think Ilia earned his shot with his knockout over Max Holloway? Islam Makhachev also talked about Dana White's special announcement. For those that forgot, Dana White came out and said he has something special planned for Islam Makhachev that no one is expecting. Makhachev talked about it during the interview with Match TV. Islam said, "I can't announce it yet, but there's an offer that we need to sit down with the team and think about, because there are options. We need to decide together what to do. There's an option in my weight class and there's an offer from the UFC, but let's wait for now." What do you guys think the special offer is for Islam Makhachev? Let us know down in the comments section below.